of this organization in hopes that it will replicate itself in the other counties in Maryland, where we have African American voters and African American citizens who participate and believe in the political process, but need some sort of unification, a rallying point. And so your work with this is very, very important. I want to thank you for the leadership that you displayed in the Maryland General Assembly, a leadership that we all came to respect and honor and appreciate, and sometimes we even took it for granted, thinking it would always be there. It was the kind of leadership that we often look for in our elected officials. And I want to thank you personally for your friendship through some dark and difficult times. When I called Obi called me. And we were both out there beating the bushes, trying to realize what in the world is going on. Are we that bad? Or was the fix in? So it's been good. My thanks to all of you who are part of this organization. And Donnie Glover, the representatives from the Baltimore organization. And if I might, on the point of personal privilege, simply thank those of you here from Charles County. Charles County did something astonishing in the '06 election. I was the first African American statewide candidate to ever carry that county. They turned out in huge numbers. They turned out in huge numbers, and I like the way they clearly realize the power that they have there, changing the county that you'll hear a lot from going forward. A lot of elected officials who've been coming and going. Herman, I know you have to leave eventually, so you can throw your tomato at me and sort of go out of the door, but it's good to have you here. It's good to have the others who are here, who've been through. I want to thank those of you who I've developed a friendship with over the last 5 or 6 years, who I may not have known before that, who welcomed me into your homes, who have sat and sort of conspired together in a nice way about changing the political fabric of this state, who believed in me, who gave me money, and who even today when I see are there to greet me with a warm hug and a warm embrace. Those are good friendships that I build on, and I really appreciate that. Susie Turnbull, the chair of the state party here, good to see you, good to have you here. Susie, you should know that I used to do a lot of public speaking. And you heard earlier I'd taken the last year off. I'd spent 6 months on the road for then Senator Obama, and I left Indiana a few hours before the polls opened to head back to Maryland. He carried Indiana, first Democrat since 1964 to do that. And I said, I think I need a break. So I took a year off. But the point I'm making is that I used to get confused going around giving speeches, and my grandmother told me, well, you're just like the old Baptist minister down the street. And I said, well, what about him? She said, well, you know the story? And I said, no. She said, well, Reverend so-and-so had a church, and every week he thought it was a good idea to put a bulletin board in the church's lobby so that people visiting the church would have an opportunity to see the outreach. Now, I'm Baptist, so I got a license here. In the Baptist church, we have a little different hierarchy. There's the pastor, then there's the trustee board.
Right.
Oh, yeah. So the head of the trustee board didn't think it was a good idea to go spend this money to put a bulletin board up in the church's lobby. And so week after week and Sunday after Sunday, they would go back and forth arguing the merits of purchase. And then finally one Sunday, the head of the trustee board, Herman, picked up the phone, called the pastor, and said, Reverend, you can go get this board. We will support you. And so fearing a change of heart, the pastor set out early the next morning to drive over to a nearby town to buy the bulletin board, and when he got there, he recognized he had left 2 things at home. He left the size of the bulletin board at home, and he left the Bible verse that was to be inscribed on the face of it. So Ron, like any good pastor, he picked up the phone, he called his wife, he said, dear, please go upstairs, look on the dresser and find for me right away the size of the bulletin board, the dimensions, and the Bible verse that's to be inscribed on it. Now, Debbie, these were the days before computers, so she found the information, but had to send it over by Western Union. So he walked across the street, he's there in the office, and all of a sudden the teletype machine begins to bang out a message, And lo and behold, the message is for him. So the young lady rips it off of the machine as she normally does. She looked at the message. It was for the pastor. She started to read it. And all of a sudden, she just fainted. She fell flat out on the floor. And her coworker, who had been with her all these many years, never having seen her like that, didn't know what had overtaken her, reached down. Yolanda took this crumpled piece of paper out of her hand, and she too held it up to the light. And it read, "Unto us a child is born, 6 feet wide and 6 feet long." So I hope and I pray that my message today will not be as misunderstood as that message, and certainly not have the same kind of effects. How much time do I have?
How much time you need?
All right, I'll be brief. I'll be brief no matter how long it takes. I was going to actually do what I was instructed to do, talk a little bit about the census and a little bit about leadership, and in the middle kind of mix some things in. But everybody that I've spoken to said it was such a great job done earlier regarding the census and reapportionment and redistricting that they said, "We got that." I said, "Okay." So I just cut out a few pages, and I hope you do have it, because it is key, and it will change. You know, we went up by about 50,000 people per congressional district, so there's going to be some shedding and some moving. The 47 legislative districts are going to change slightly, particularly up in Baltimore, where they've lost 14,000 people since the last census. You're going to have another overlapping annexation of a Baltimore City district with a legislative district with a Baltimore County one. There'll be some shifting of the lines down here because, you know, Southern Maryland grew.
That's right.
Oh, yes, it did.
Right.
By leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And the Eastern Shore grew. And interestingly enough, the 5 most western parts of the state grew. They grew at a smaller rate, but there's some shifting going on, and so the lines are going to be significant, not to mention the $400 billion that the federal government awards based on counts and based on population. So the governor will set up a commission. As you know, the commission will go out for 6 months and take public testimony. It will report back to the governor. He will draw his own map only on congressional districts first. Submit that to the legislature. The legislature has 45 days to act. If they don't, his map becomes law. If they do, they amend it and adopt it and pass it. And then after that, the second process starts a few months or maybe even a year later for the legislative district. So it is significant. And I don't want to dwell on that, but I do want to dwell on some things that are ancillary to that, and some things that I think beg for our attention. I spent a great deal of time on the ground in Florida following the re-election of George Bush, and all of the attendant controversy that came out of that regarding chads, hanging chads, and miscounts, and voter intimidation. And as head of the NAACP, we just moved there and camped out because the Justice Department didn't seem to want to act right away. The Congress just kind of looked at it and followed what was going on CNN. When we spent 3 weeks on the ground there, we heard some horror stories that I knew were not just happening there in Florida, but happening elsewhere. And some of you will remember what happened here in 2006. The polling machines in Prince George's County and Baltimore City not being open or available until well after 11:30 in the morning, after some people had gone on their way to work knowing that they might not be able to get back. We don't know how many voters have been turned off as a result of that. You hear over and over again of the challenges, the voter intimidation things that have taken place. So let me just start, if I might, to talk a little bit about what our responsibility could and should be with respect to the election in that respect, and then just some meanderings I may have.